Hi everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're zooming in on a really massive strategic play sitting right at the intersection of high finance and global healthcare. We're talking about AGS Health's upcoming $500 million IPO. It's honestly a fascinating story about corporate growth and capital strategy unfolding in one of the fastest growing economies on the planet. And we're going to break this whole thing down step by step so you can see exactly how the gears of this massive industry actually turn. I mean, $500 million. Let that sink in for a second. That is the target for this highly anticipated initial public offering. When you see a capital move of this sheer scale, it immediately demands attention, right? It tells us that major, heavy-hitting institutional players are making some incredibly calculated decisions. But to really grasp the impact of a number like that, we have to unpack the who, the what, and the where behind it.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for this explainer. We've got 4 main beats today. First, the $500 million move. Second, unpacking AGS Health. Third, the Blackstone factor. And finally, why India, why now?
All right, jumping right into part 1, the $500 million move, filing the paperwork.
You know, every major market debut always starts with the paperwork. AGS Health has officially filed its updated draft red herring prospectus, or DRHP. If you're not familiar, a DRHP is basically that crucial preliminary registration document filed with market regulators. By fully opening up their books and detailing their operations to the regulators, they've essentially fired the starting gun for going public. So, with these updated draft papers officially targeting a $500 million IPO, this whole thing goes from industry rumor to actual reality. The machinery is officially in motion, and it's brilliantly illustrating that crucial first step to transition AGS Health from a privately held entity into a publicly traded powerhouse. Which brings us to part 2, unpacking AGS Health, the financial plumbing. So what actually drives a $500 million valuation like this? Well, AGS Health operates in something called Revenue Cycle Management, or RCM. Now, I know RCM might sound a bit dry on the surface, but believe me, it is the absolute lifeblood of hospital operations. It's the system that tracks the entire financial lifespan of patient care, right from the initial appointment all the way to the final bill being paid. If you look at the flow, it's actually pretty straightforward in concept, but incredibly complex in practice. The patient gets care, AGS then steps in to process all that highly regulated medical coding and billing, and finally, the hospital actually gets paid. AGS Health is essentially acting as the vital financial plumbing for global healthcare systems. They are processing these massive volumes of data so that hospitals can actually secure their revenue cycle and, frankly, survive financially. Now, let's look at the puppet masters. Part 3, the Blackstone factor, the heavy hitter. This is where the story shifts from just being about a successful healthcare services company to a much broader, macro-level financial strategy. Private equity giant Blackstone is the one driving this AGS Health public offering, and Blackstone's involvement here is absolutely critical to understand. This isn't just a standard company deciding, organically that it wants to expand. When a private equity titan is pulling the strings, it signals serious institutional backing, incredibly deep pockets, and a highly calculated strategic exit. They bring a level of financial engineering that literally changes the entire nature of this IPO. And of course, a journey like this doesn't just happen overnight. It started with Blackstone coming in during the investment phase, injecting the capital and strategy. That directly fueled AGS Health's aggressive global scaling to boost its overall valuation. And that meticulous scaling phase is exactly what brings us to where we are today, filing those updated draft papers. It is a textbook private equity lifecycle playing out right in front of us. And finally, part 4, why India? Why now? The launch pad. We have to zoom out for a second and look at the geographical stage they chose for this event. AGS Health is explicitly setting its sights on the Indian market for this $500 million debut. And the real question we should be asking ourselves is why? Why is a massive, global private equity firm utilizing the Indian public markets as their specific launch pad for this exit? Well, it speaks volumes about the current liquidity, the soaring investor appetite, and the dynamic growth happening within India's financial exchanges right now. It's an incredibly strategic choice of venue designed for maximum capital impact. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive inflection point the company is navigating. We're watching AGS Health shift from being a securely backed entity deep within the private equity ecosystem over to their post-IPO target of becoming a publicly traded powerhouse that is specifically tapping into India's market liquidity. Which leaves us with one really big final thought to chew on. Is this $500 million move the spark for India's next IPO boom? Look, when heavy hitters like Blackstone push $500 million healthcare deals through the Indian markets, it rarely happens in a vacuum. Is this just an isolated success story, or is it the canary in the coal mine signaling a much larger wave of tech-enabled services shifting their IPO sites straight to India? It is definitely a fascinating trend to watch, and now you've got the foundational structure to understand exactly how it's unfolding. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.